Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. It's Way T Lightheart from Bioptimizers with another edition of the Awesome Health Podcast. And today we are going to talk about how to boost metabolism when nothing else has worked before. And we're also going to talk about lifestyle choices and how emotional, psychological, and of course, lifestyle opportunities can open up when people make changes in their life. And our guest today is Nagina Abdullah, who is a health coach for women's professionals, physicians, and seven-figure entrepreneurs, and founder of the website masalabody.com. She teaches women to lose 20 to 40 plus pounds, even while working 60 plus hours a week, and if they have tried everything. Nagina has a degree in molecular and cell biology from UC Berkeley and has helped over 700 professional women successfully lose weight and create a lifestyle change. She has been featured in health.com, Business Insider, people.com, and more. And she has taken time out of her busy schedule to join us today on the Awesome Health Podcast. Nagina, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Wade. I am so excited to be here and to talk with you today.
So you did kind of an opposite. I'm going to get your backstory because you're a California girl that decided, you know what, the West Coast is too soft and easy. I want to move to New York City, work 60 plus hours a week. That's a dream. Tell me that whole backstory of what got you, number one, into this industry, number two, how your kind of background, that transformation, and then maybe number three, what you're doing today in the world that's making such a profound impact on professional women, I think because this is it's a very interesting topic. And I want to couch this a little bit before we get started, because one of the things that I'm in constant observance for women, we have a lot of supporters, women supporters on Bioptimizers is this. You can counter it or disagree. Back in the 60s, women got the ability to control their birth cycles, with the advent of the pill. And from that point, it opened up an incredible array of professional options for women, which I think is a very positive aspect. That being said, we're the only species in evolutionary history where the women now have the capability to control reproduction of the species. Therefore, when you change the reproductive cycle of a species, you change the species. And now we have women, like you're mentioning, working 60 plus hours a week, but have maybe grown up in a conditioning system that was based on all of our ancestral models. And now we're caught in this mishmash of things. And I don't know how long it's going to take us to figure it out. So maybe you have, and maybe you can add some insight for us and some of us who are a little bit more ignorant to the challenges of the professional women today.
Oh my gosh. Well, thanks so much. I would love to share this. And the way that you described it, that's so funny because I'm like, why did I choose to move somewhere where I have to work 60 hours a week? And that's just the norm. In fact, that's little. That sounds like a little amount to a lot of people in the area where I am now. But I grew up in California and on the West Coast. I grew up in Arizona for some of the time, but I had ever since I was a very young girl, I had a vision in my heart and in my mind that I wanted to move to New York City. And I had never been there before, but I just knew that I wanted to be in this busy area that was hustling and bustling. And there was just so much opportunity. And I dreamed of wearing a business suit and working in New York. And I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to do something in that with that vision in mind. And so I did, after graduating college, I lived in the Bay Area. I loved it, but I was yearning for something bigger and something more. And so I set my sights on applying to graduate school in New York to bring me over to the East Coast. And that's exactly what I did. I went to business school at NYU, and then while I was here, New York turned out to be everything I wanted it to be and more. it was more exciting. There was all of these interesting people. There were so many opportunities. And, so while working here, or while going to school here, I was working on getting a Fortune 500 style career going. And I actually did land my dream job at a top consulting firm in New York City, which was my dream. I got to put my business suit on every day. I felt like I was truly living out my passion and my dream. And I traveled all over the East Coast, working for Fortune 500 and Fortune 100 healthcare companies. That was the area that I was in, I worked in healthcare. And so what happened is, by working in that career, it was very much work hard, play hard, where we would work often 12-hour days. We would be living in different cities, and then we'd go out to dinner and drinks afterwards. And then we'd come back the next day and do it all. And it was extremely thrilling and exciting. And so you didn't want to not do those things. You wanted to be part of all of it.
Sure.
And so then, what happened is that during that time, I was at the moment, I had gotten married right after business school before starting working there. And that's when I started, I wanted to have children. And so I had my first child, and shortly after, my second child. And so as I was getting ready to go back to my job, which I was excited to go back to, I realized that physically, I did not feel good in my body at all. And physically, I could not fit into all of the gorgeous business clothes that I had bought, that I had dreamed of wearing for my entire life. I could no longer fit into those clothes. And I looked at myself in the mirror, and I didn't know who was looking back at me, because I felt like my insides were so motivated and so excited, but yet on the outside, I looked tired, I looked exhausted, and I looked old. And I didn't feel like that person. And I didn't want I didn't want to be reflected as that person, but I also didn't want to feel as uncomfortable and as tired as I was feeling in my body. So there was multiple things happening, whether it was external or internal. I wasn't happy with what I was looking like and what I was feeling like. And so at that moment, I made a decision that I could no longer live the life I wanted to live if I stayed at that weight. And I knew that physical weight was blocking me from being the woman that I wanted to be, being the professional, being as productive and as confident as being as energetic and active with my children, feeling confident and feminine around my husband. I couldn't do those things with this weight on me, because I didn't feel like myself, and it wasn't healthy. And I knew that. And that's where I said, I need to make a shift, but I can no longer go on a diet like I had gone for years and years before. I had tried all the diets out there, from Weight Watchers to Eating Less to South Beach to everything. And everything had worked 5-10 pounds, and then I would put it right back on. And so what I did is I said, I need to make my approach fun. And that was the number one word that went through my mind, because if I follow these restrictive diets out there, I'm just going to keep going up and down in the yo-yo. And I don't want to be 10 years from now still forcing myself to go to the gym, still forcing myself to eat greens. I don't want to do that anymore. I'm done with that. And so that's where I went back to my background in my scientific undergrad degree. I started studying all of the scientific information. And what I found was that a lot of the foods that we learned from those diets, that's not the only way that you can get healthier. The actual way to get healthier is to eat more real healthy foods and then make it taste good. And, I actually grew up in a traditional Indian family where we use spices and flavors. And so I was very, very used to using spices and flavors. I just had never linked healthy food with spices and flavors. And so, Wade, what I did was I just started adding delicious things like cumin, ginger, garlic to my vegetables. I started eating lentils and beans as more of my carbs. And I started using cinnamon instead of sugar. I started doing these things. I started adding more protein. And unbelievably, I lost 40 pounds in 9 months. And to put that in perspective, I lost 20 pounds to get to my pre-pregnancy weight, but then I dropped 20 more. And I was the most in shape I had ever been in my life after I had 2 children while working in that high-paced job. And that's the moment where everything shifted for me. Multiple people came up to me on a daily basis asking me, how do you look better after having kids than you look before? And something shifted in my mind, because I had always thought that after you have kids, your life goes downhill. I just thought that was a stereotype I had, because that's what I saw. I saw that people were overweight, they were unhappy, they were stressed, and I did not want to be that person. And so people started asking me these questions, and they started saying, what did you eat? How did you do this? And so that's where I had so much advice to give that I started my website, masalabody.com. I started adding recipes. I started adding mindsets. I started talking about how to make these changes in your life. And over the course of the next several years, I started coaching women to integrate these changes into their own lives. I started releasing menu plans and programs. And now, just recently, I've gone full time and have an entire business with employees and coaching, dozens and dozens of other professional women to do the same thing that I did, and really lose the weight, but then begin the life of their dreams, begin being more active, begin wearing the clothes that they want to wear, know that they're going to keep doing this for the rest of their life. And that's where I am now.
Beautifully said. I want to back the truck up a little bit, because you unloaded a collage of things, which I think there's a lot of things that we can unpack in that, but particularly, how long would you say was the drift from, say, where you were in that professional career, getting married, getting kids, and then coming to the realization, I want to get back into, the swing of things, and I don't look or feel like, I feel a certain way, but I don't look the certain way, and that impacts my confidence. What I want you to do is can you share how long it kind of got to that? Was there kind of like an area where you're just focused on having kids and all this sort of stuff, and then all of a sudden, boom, when you wake up one day, it happens? Was it a gradual thing? And then how often does this happen in the world of professional women who, take a break in their career to have kids? Because guys, we can't take breaks for the kid. Like we don't have babies. Like, and this is a biological fact, beside what everybody wants to put gender assignments on whatever they want to identify with, but it doesn't matter what you identify with. Only genetically based females can have kids. It's the only way the population goes forward. So the whole human race is essentially dependent on women in this situation. And there's an extraordinary amount of pressure, I think, that we haven't fully grasped, understood, or been able to manage. What was that like for you?
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, such a great question. Such a great question, Wade. So, what happened for me is that when I had my children, my first child, there was a moment where I knew that I just wanted to indulge in being a new mom and taking care of my baby and learning about it. And, I was on full leave for my company, and I pretty much had nothing else to do except for to focus on being a mom. And it was heavenly, and I loved it. And then around 3 or 4 months, I started to feel great. I started to feel back to normal. And I kind of just went with my body and how I felt. I didn't put any pressure on myself. But when I felt healthy and I felt like I was ready, I had a lot of energy. That's what happened. I started getting my energy back. And so the first thing that often happens for women after having babies is like, you might, you're into the baby, you might feel really tired for some time, but then you start feeling back to normal. And so it's at that crux where you can decide, you can make a choice, and you can say, I can stay where I am right now, or I can start to feel even better. And the longer you stay where you are, the more work you're going to have to do later. So I knew that I didn't enjoy feeling like I was heavy in my body. I didn't enjoy having this physical weight slow me down. And so what I did is I also knew after my first child that I wanted to have my second child. And I knew that this is what happens. And this is what I've heard from so many women that have, multiple kids, is that when you don't take the weight off in between children, then it adds on child after child. And that's how you'll find that there's a woman in her 20s or 30s that's super, super fit. And then after she has a couple or a few kids, she looks like a different person. It's because it's gradually happening. Mm-hmm. And so this isn't about pressure. It's more about taking care of your future self. And I wanted to take care of my future self. I didn't want to put myself in the position where I had to go through such a change to feel better about myself. I just wanted to take care of it right away. And so in between children, I got my weight back down. And then I had my second child. And then after I had her, that is when I felt I had gained more weight. I was at a lower position. I actually didn't feel the energy that I had felt after the first. And this is something else that's important. After having 2 children, it's different. You have 2 children to take care of. You're more tired. You're more exhausted. You're not the same person that you were before. And that's why it is important to try to get ahead of that between children, so that, because it is going to be more to take care of. Mm-hmm. But even if you haven't, it's okay, because there's still things that you can do. There's still ways that you can do. It's okay. It's going to happen if you want it to. But after my second child is when that moment happened where I said, I don't feel like myself. I had my friends and family asking me to do things, go to New York with them. And I was turning them down because I didn't have any clothes to wear. As vain as that might sound, I didn't feel good in my body. I didn't feel like I had anything to offer because I felt so low about myself. And that was a moment where I made that choice. I have to do this. Like, I wanted to do it right away, or I wanted to do it right when I felt healthy enough. And so I can say, by the time my child was 1, my second child was 1, I was in the best shape of my life at that point. But I also know many, many, many women that really are not in the headspace to be able to take care of themselves. A lot of people have children that had a lot of problems. Like maybe it was they stayed up so late. There was health issues. There was a lot. They didn't have that freedom to be able to take care of themselves. And so I have women that come to me now when their children are 5 and they think, I just have had a chance to think about myself right now. I'm ready for this. I'm ready to take care of myself. I have women that come to me when their children are 13 and when their children are going to college, and none of it is too late. None of it is too late. Sometimes it just comes over you at different times of your life. But what I can say is that if you know the strategy and you can do it a little bit sooner, then you have longer to feel amazing in your body. And a lot of times people are just not sure how to get started, and they're trying all these old-fashioned diets. And that's why it feels so hard. And so because the process seems so hard, we sometimes stop ourselves. But the process can actually be enjoyable and fun. And that's a really great way to get yourself started, is think about, how can I make this fun? Which is what I did.
What was the time frame from when you got pregnant on the first baby to the time that the end of the second pregnancy, and then how long did it take you to kind of get in shape in that standard? Yeah. Could you kind of give us some windows there?
Yeah. So my children, they're 16 months apart. So they're people feel like that's close. In my family, it was normal. My sister and I are 16 months apart. My husband and his brother and his sister are each 14 and 15 months apart. For me, it was very normal. I was ready. I knew what was going to happen. I was ready. So I wanted to take action and get healthy so that I could have another healthy pregnancy. And so from the moment my first child was, I got pregnant, then I had my first child. It was July of 2009 is when I had my first child. My second child, my daughter, my first child is a son. My second daughter was in November of 2010. Now, by November of 2011, when I had her first birthday party, in that moment, I got in the best shape of my life in that year. But I started after she was 3 months old, because naturally I felt better in my body. Yep. But not everybody does. It's up to everyone, but that's when I started.
I think you made a good point there, and I think that's worth validating, is that there was an energetic component that you felt where you're feeling right. You might not look the way you want, but there was that trigger point. And would you say that that's a key aspect for when to kind of, okay, now you can kind of step on the gas if you're a woman that's recently gone through pregnancy and has all these other things, is that you've got to get to that point where you've got the juice back, sort of thing?
I'm so glad you're bringing that out, because absolutely it was that energetic component, that feeling of feeling like I had energy inside, but I couldn't let it out because physically I was being burdened with this weight, and I had all these things I wanted to do now. And, that's part of like what we're going to talk about a little bit more too, is living the life that you want to live. Whereas when I had children, it was very important to me to not only live for my children. I was very, very focused on living my own life and being happy in my body and in my life. And I wanted to do things. I wanted to go to dinner in New York. I wanted to, I wanted to take my kids places also, but I also wanted to go on dates with my husband and wear a sexy dress and feel good in my sexy dress. I wanted to do all of these things. So I had all these desires coming out of me. And at that moment, I knew that I could try to accept myself. And there's a whole movement about accepting yourself, which, we can talk a little bit about that. But if you are at an unhealthy weight, I don't agree with accepting yourself, because
let's talk about that for a second, because that is you're stating something that's really, really critical here. And some people think that this is an inappropriate topic. It's a taboo topic. It's something that, there's all these sort of snowflake-isms about everybody's got to be soft. But the reality is, health is a certain standard, and the economic costs and the personal lifestyle costs of being obese is well documented. The drain on society, the drain on companies, the lack of vitality, the increased depression, the increased aspects of heart disease, diabetes, psychological impairment, the abuse of a variety of chemicals to deal with self-image issues. Like, the corollary effect of not setting a standard for health, at least for functionality, it's undeniable. And I'm of the advocacy for, hey, you know what? Yes, I don't care what a person identifies with their gender. I don't care what race they're from. Awesome. I think the more of these things, the better. I get to learn from all the things. I have a rich array of friends from different cultures that I learn so many different things, and I love that. But I think as the human race, and I think we need to think as the human race, which we're all a part of, is, can we actually get to some honest standards for people to maintain? And the thing I would like to see implemented, because we see these governmental policies that are accounting or increasing in their scope and their administration and their expense and the university funding and the pharmaceutical interventions and all of these things, in a model where we spend the more money we spend on healthcare, the sicker, fatter, and more unhappy people get. To me, pumping more money into that system makes no sense, and setting standards of excellence is something that's far more rewarding. And I'd like to know, you as a professional, both in molecular biology and also as a businesswoman, and as a wife, and as a mother to 2 kids with an extremely demanding lifestyle. You have every excuse in the book. And let's not kid ourselves. 2 of my dearest friends are from the Indian culture. And the level of pressure you get around traditional eating food, Indian food, it's off the charts. And I can remember going through those pressure points when I was dieting for my contest. Because these are literally my closest and best friends. And I have a deep connection, particularly with the Indian culture, because of my spiritual practices, and it's the cradle of civilization in many ways, and the advent of all spiritual traditions in the world. A lot of people don't know about the historical aspects of that, but we have all this richness, yet we also, and India produces the most amount of doctors in the world. You are more likely to have an Indian doctor wherever you are on the planet than any place else, any other culture in the world. It's one of the most successful cultures, and yet you have a high rate of obesity and the society pressure about eat. And many of the food isn't, and there's an emotional, psychological, and social connection to this. So, and what I'm trying to get at is, if there's anybody that's had more pressure on you, it would be hard to find. Culturally, work-wise, children, you've got every reason to opt out of the excellent program that I could think of. How were you able to overcome that and not buy into lowering your standards, and instead not just meeting a certain standard, but exceeding it after doing all of these things, which most people would give you a pass on in today's world.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. Now I'm like, okay, I feel like I need to celebrate myself. You made me feel really good. Thank you. And
well, it's an incredible accomplishment. And what we know that there's a standard bell curve of distribution in people on everything, genetics and fitness and athletics and economics and stuff. And I've never been fascinated with the middle of the bell curve. I've always been looking at what we do at the Awesome Health Show and at Bioptimizers is what's happening in that small percentage which you are existing in. And you have all of those pressure points that says that you should be on the other end of the bell curve. But you found a way to come over it. There's practices, there's thought process, there's an emotional connection, there's an awareness. Like, what are those things that you've been able to identify that allows you to be so successful in managing all these things?
Yeah. Well, so for me, it was actually a non-negotiable for me to be healthy. It was not an option.
How did you get to that point? How did you get to that point?
And so how I got to that was that, so part of it comes from the fact that, being raised as someone that was, I was always important to be a high performer. And in my mind, I was a high performer. I worked as hard as I could. I mean, I did everything I could to get into a good school, to get a good job, to live the life that I dreamed of. I really took steps to live that life that I wanted. I moved across the country to New York. I got my dream job, got to work in New York, do all those things. And those were the things that I strived for. And so part of living that high performing life was also being well-rounded. I did not only want to be good at one thing or at like making money or at going to a good college or living where I wanted to live. I wanted to be able to be well-rounded. And what that means is like, I didn't want to get to a place where I just didn't want to feel unhappy in my body. And I was not okay with accepting myself. I wanted to get better. And I do that even now with self-improvement and self-development and all of those things where I'm just kind of I'm not going to settle until I feel really satisfied. And there are areas of my life where I'm satisfied and there's other areas that I'm always striving to get better. And so at that place, I knew the blocks that would happen if I didn't, if I didn't get healthier. But I think, the other place that this started was really where I, as a child, actually, it was one of the things from my mom where being healthy was drilled into us. And it wasn't being healthy. It was more about looking a certain way. It was like, you should not look like you're overweight. You should not look like this. And you should be good in school. And so it was like drilled in. But then over time, as I grew up, I realized I didn't want to feel like I didn't like feeling uncomfortable in my body. I didn't want to feel like that. So it was almost like that's how it was a non-negotiable because it started before. It was never okay to be letting myself go in anything. Like whether it's like in my life, whether it's letting myself go because this is too easy, it's too hard, I shouldn't do it. No, it was like working for what I wanted. And but then as I got older and I had more responsibilities, I didn't want to work so hard for everything. So I was trying to figure out is there an easier way that's natural that feels good. And I became more about what feels good in my body. And thankfully, after all that research and integrating, the flavors that I liked, it all ended up working out and coming together. So does that kind of answer? I know it's like, that's a really great question. And it's like, yeah, how do you make it a non-negotiable? Because not everybody does that. Not everyone doesn't believe that. And I do think there's certain things that are ingrained in you that you're like, I just have to do this. I couldn't even think about not doing it.
Someone asked me that a long time, not that long ago, when I was thinking back to my competitive days where I was into extremely high standards, in performance-based standards. And I'm not saying that those were necessarily healthy, but they required extraordinary levels of discipline. And one of the things that I would do is I would create these thought experiments or these psychological games with myself for creating standards. It's like if I could push myself on a set of squats and I'd be completely physically exhausted, then I was like, all right, I could get $1 million if I can make one more. Can I do it? or I could save somebody's life if I get one more chin up, or that piece of food, which I really want, but I know it's not contributing to my success. What if that costs me the title? That one slice of pizza is the thing that takes me out. And I would create these things in my mind, kind of using almost like a neuro-linguistic programming to amplify the effects, to get leverage on myself. And what I found though also is after my career ended, because I stayed at that level of discipline, I also did the other thing where I was like, you know what? I did that dieting stuff for a long period of time. I don't necessarily need to, I can go have some fun, and which I did and I enjoyed. But then I also, you pick up these habits, and why I'm saying that is I think the process of building babies is a pretty intense process. And it's not necessarily conducive to 60-hour work weeks or, this kind of things. And you get all sorts of things that happen as a woman who's pregnant. At least that's my observation point of all the women I've known who are pregnant. And oftentimes you change your standards for a period of time because it's all about the kid or whatever is going on. But like somehow you were able to slingshot back. Like, can you describe that journey for you? Like both, I think there's two parts that's really interesting here that I think a lot of women would like to know. I'm interested as a guy is number one, how did you allow yourself to do what you needed to do for the kids, moving away from maybe the professional demands, and then finding that sweet spot where the button comes on and you say, okay, now I'm coming back and I'm coming back better than ever. Can you unpack a little bit of what was going on for you? Because it seems like you're highly connected with your intuitive self, which I think is also a really important aspect.
And now for a Bioptimizers fixed digestion tip: supercharge your protein shake. Everyone knows protein shakes are a great way to sneak in extra protein, build more muscle, even replace meals and burn more fat. The problem is the highest quality protein typically absorbs at around 40%. One way to fix this and dramatically increase how quickly and effective your protein shake digests is to add 2 to 3 capsules of Masszymes into your shake. One research study showed that pre-digested protein during a meal increased muscle growth significantly. To take advantage of this, just blend the open capsules into your shake, and within 15 minutes or less, the enzymes will have begun to break down the protein into amino acids. This can make your shakes at least 2 to 3 times more potent. Some people do this and sip on their shake while lifting to provide their muscles with a steady stream of amino acids during their workout. To save 10% on Masszymes, use the code SHAKE10, that's SHAKE10, at Masszymes.com. That's SHAKE10 at Masszymes.com.
Yeah. So, okay. So kind of like you're asking how I was able to move away from that professional life with kids. Like, you mean to like move into my own, move into doing my own kind of thing, or moved into like the break that I had when I was having kids?
Both, that whole journey, because I'm faced with this all the time. I have women who come to me, many of which people I'm acquainted for, people who are professionals in the field or whatever. They've built a rock star career. They get into their early 30s. These are women who killed it at school, killed it in their professional career, at the top of their game. They get this overwhelming feeling that they have to have children. It just seems to come on like a freight train. And then they're like, they kind of hit these existential crises. Is like, I just want to be with my baby. I want to go home, but then I feel like I'm not being on my career. Or they get inside the baby world and now I want to get back to my career. I've had enough of goo goo gaga right now. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's all this mishmash of things. I'm curious to how you are able to so smoothly navigate that, and how other women might be able to grasp some of those points that you were able to pick up, or whether that was intuitive or whether you had a process, or whether, like, I'm curious about that.
Oh my gosh. Thanks for asking that. And actually, when I was, a new mom, I actually felt some time isolated because I was doing a lot of things that a lot of other moms would not do at the time because of their own reasons, but I was okay with doing those things. And also my kids are very healthy and mentally healthy as well right now. So
what were those things?
It's okay, you know?
What was that?
Yeah. So what that was is like, you know, I can tell you this story like right after I had, and you know, I feel like I'm the minority, so I don't know how many people will resonate with this, but I will tell you that 3 weeks after I had my son, my first child, I had a whole outing with my girlfriends in New York where we went to the meatpacking district. We went out to a club. We went to have dinner. We had drinks and all of the things. Like everything was great. And I felt like I was living the life that I wanted to live. And I felt so happy. And then I went home and the next day I was with my baby and I felt like, oh my God, what a dream that I get to live. Like I get to have fun and do my own life. And then I also have a child. And so for me, what happened is that I had seen so many visions of women that felt like exactly a lot of things that you were describing, where they had like really become a different person after they had children. And for me, I felt like I became a better person after I had children. Like my babies added to my life, but I was still doing the things that I was doing before. And I just, you know, the weight, that's why I was realizing the weight was really blocking me from being that person. I needed to immediately get it off because I was doing those things already. And so for me, I felt no guilt in living my life. I felt that my kids will be better off if I'm happy. And it doesn't even matter because like right now, this is my life and I chose to have kids. So I should still live my life. I should not give up my life for them. And some of this was also coming, a small part of it was coming from the fact that I had never seen other moms that were in my circle or in my past that looked like they were living their dream life after they had children. And I did not want to be that person that had kids and my life ended. And so it wasn't like I was trying to move against that, but that was something that was in my mind where I felt strongly that I was going to work to be the woman that I wanted to be as a mom and not as a mom, like in all areas of my life. So, you know, that also took intention because I actually planned to go to places with people. I planned, like my husband and I went on a trip to Jamaica when my son was 4 months old, you know, on our own, and he was taken care of by his grandma. And guess what? He had a great opportunity to spend time with his grandma. And my husband and I had a great time to reconnect and go on a vacation by ourselves and keep our relationship healthy. So it took intention. And then it also was about just following my heart because I wanted to have a fun life. I wanted to not give myself up because I had children. And what's happened now is that my son is about to turn 12 and my daughter's 10 and a half now. And they have so much fun in their lives. We do so many active things as a family. They see me doing active things and it's normal for them to be adventurous and curious and getting out there. So that was the person I was. Everyone else has their own personality. But what I did is I didn't let my personality go because I didn't want to become resentful of being a mom. I wanted to be happy about being a mom. So
I think you bring up another piece there, and I want to go into that a little bit. And that is you recognize and understood it, because I think a lot of women particularly develop a sense of guilt around still wanting to do the things that they were doing before having kids. And, you know, the attachment to children, and there is a risk, I think, of becoming a martyr. There is a certain, I think it was Lex Friedman was talking to Brett Weinstein the other day, and he says, well, you know, martyrdom is kind of its own drug. And then that negative pressure gets oftentimes projected on the kids. Do you know what I've done for you? I've sacrificed so much, blah, 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 you know, which then that guilt transfer to the children can happen. And then, of course, at the end of the day, I do believe that being a happy mom or a happy dad is one of the best examples that you can provide for your children, whatever that requires. And would you say there's been an increasing demand? Like when I grew up in kids, as a kid, we were told, okay, we got done school, you know, we went out and played till dinner time. We came home from dinner time. It's like, okay, be back at dark. And that was it. Like, there wasn't play dates. There was not this like chauffeur service that was going on. And there was a certain amount of independence and stuff that I don't see today. I see a lot of parents are really caught in this thing that they've got to be, you know, the secretary and chauffeur and financier and, entertainment director for their children. And that's also a relatively new thing over the last, say, 30 or 40 years. How do you navigate the world as it is today in that, and maintain your happiness and your kids' autonomy and continue your professional career? Like,
yeah. So, I mean, there is a lot more to handle right now. And some of it is for different reasons. Sometimes you don't live as close to other kids. Sometimes there's a lot of safety issues now that are not what they were. There's a lot of it is there's just different reasons for things that, I used to be that child playing in the street till it was dark. In fact, we used to play this game called Ghosts in the Graveyard, which it had to be dark because it was a graveyard game. And I mean, it was in our street, but that's what we called it. And that's the upbringing that I knew. And so I definitely, encourage that, but then also there is a level of safety and like, are there kids that live around you and all these different things. So, what I've been doing, and this is actually a very like a specific strategy, especially with this year that's passed, which has been coronavirus, our kids have been at home for half the days. They had half days where we live. And so really after 1 o'clock, my kids were home while I was working full time in my office. And what was happening is that it was on my head that they're home. Even though they're fine, what are they doing? Are they on their, like, electronics is so much bigger now. And so, it's just like, you're trying not to have them be on electronics for 4 hours. And so, all these things. So what I realized is that I was having all this pressure. And so I actually just wanted to have quality time with my children. And I was trying to get it in like while I could, but it was never quality time. So now what I did is I just took a full week off and just, we went somewhere. Like we went on a vacation together. It wasn't like a big vacation. It was just, we just went to a local city, stayed there for a couple of days. And I realized that was such great quality time and that I shouldn't ever feel guilty, about these moments. Cause that's what life is. Like, people have to work, kids go to school. Usually they'd be in school all day. I wouldn't have that opportunity to even see them. So, a lot of this is guilt that moms carry with them. And, I see different ranges of mothers. Some mothers will continue to have that guilt. And there's also a lot of mothers, like, in fact, I know some partners that work at top firms and they have really great children. Like, their children are very, very like mature, but also emotional, very, very great kids. And they just are more like cut and dry about, okay, my kid's starting camp on this day. And this is how the childcare is because I need to go to work, because I need to travel. And they don't feel that guilt. And their kids are great. So I don't think that like the level of how much you're with the kids or not with the kids matters. It really matters about the time that you're spending with them, the quality that you're giving them when you're with them, and also the support you are bringing about, like through childcare and through other ways. So it's that balancing, and it's fine. It works out. And I think women need to be so much more empowered to step back and to let their kids be more free. Like you've been mentioning, you don't have to be on top of them all the time. They can do, whether they're with you or they're not with you, they're growing up. You just want to try to have that quality time with them as much as you can.
Beautifully said. So let's kind of switch gears a little bit and talk about your career right now, is how you're helping these 60+ hour a week professional women get into the best shape of their lives, be great moms, feel great, look great, knock it out of the park with all these demands in the modern world. How did you get into that component? What are the biggest challenges that you see that women are coming to you with? And how do you navigate that as their coach?
Yes, absolutely. Oh my gosh. Okay. So the way that I got into it is that, I described my transformation, that so many women were asking me what happened. How did I do it? And what's interesting is that I started sharing everything, as you like, hopefully you see, I'm willing to share, and I would share with women exactly what I did to lose the weight. But here's what's interesting is that I would literally unlock the secrets of the weight loss that women were craving and desiring and wishing for. And I would tell them to do X, Y, Z, and a little bit more. And they would do zero. They would do none of it. There was not, and I was like, wait, I just worked my whole life to uncover these secrets. It used to feel so hard and now it's so easy. And here's the secret solution. Just do these few things. And there was always different reasons like, well, I don't have time. I don't like that. I don't know if I can fit that in. Can't go to the grocery store and get that. So all these different things. So what I learned was, after like 20 people didn't do what I told them, I realized it wasn't them. It was me. It was me. I wasn't telling them in the right way. I wasn't teaching. I wasn't transforming in the right way. So I actually started learning about how to change the psychology of others, how to change habits in people, how to influence people to create change. Because this isn't as easy as telling someone you should eat vegetables all day. There's so many more things that are deep and are uncovering that you have to really uncover. So the work that I do now, I help women lose weight, but what it really is based on is how to help women transform their entire lives through changing the way they think. And so what I started to do is, instead of telling women to do all of these things, I started by telling them one thing that would work. For example, I would say, you should add cinnamon to your coffee instead of having sugar, because cinnamon lowers your blood sugar and it removes your sweet cravings for sugar. And that was so simple and easy that anyone can sprinkle cinnamon in their coffee. So it wasn't like creating a recipe or buying an ingredient. It was just doing something they already did. And so soon, for example, women started doing that. And then they'd say, oh my God, I don't have as much sugar in my coffee anymore. I'm feeling better in the mornings. What else can I do? And so I would share with them like another small thing. And soon they started trusting me and they started doing the things that I was doing. And so this is how I really started my business, which is, I almost stopped because I was getting so much rejection from people not changing their habits, but then I learned the strategies. So then I started my blog, masalabaya.com, started writing about these things, doing writing about my strategies, my mindsets, sharing recipes. And then what I realized is I learned about the fact that you can actually teach so many people online. And, there's so much influence that you can have online. And what happened is that as I was sharing all of this advice, one of my readers asked me if I could coach them. She was a very ambitious banker in New York with 2 5-year-old twins, and she was ready to get back to herself. And so I learned about how to coach people. I took her on and I coached her, and I actually was making recipe plans for her based on what I had done to lose 40 pounds. But then I was also coaching her mentally, like coaching her about the habit changes, about the choices, about the temptations that are everywhere. And because she had that accountability, she had strategies, and she had recipes, my first client lost 40 pounds with me. And from there, I started extending my services in my through my blog, through my emails, and started bringing on more professional women, and they all started getting results. And the difference and the reason they started getting results when they had tried everything else that they hadn't before was because they had a specific plan. They were able to implement. They weren't just hearing abstract information, because professional women and busy women, we know what to do. We're smart, but we don't actually know how to bring it into reality, into executing it on a daily basis. What do I eat for breakfast, lunch, dinner? If I'm traveling, what do I eat? If I'm out with my family, what do I eat? They just didn't know the choices to make. And then they didn't have accountability to stay consistent, because you know this, Wade, consistency is the secret to being healthy. You're consistent. You're consistent doing the right things. But if you do it for 1 day or 2 days, and then you have 5 days that you're kind of not, of course, you're not going to see results. So this was about getting that accountability. And so that's really where I started growing my clients. I got so many clients that were losing weight. They started sharing with me their before and after pictures. And then from there, I grew into creating group online programs. And I started, I had several online programs that had menu plans, but also support for me. And then now I've evolved into where I am right now, which is I have a higher end program where I coach very, very busy professional women, physicians, entrepreneurs who really don't have a lot of time, and they don't even want to look online for anything. They really want someone talking to them, texting them. They want someone emailing them of exactly what to do in any situation that they're in. And they also want frameworks, and they want templates, and they don't necessarily want recipes. They may, but not all the time. And so now I've evolved into this place where we're specifically serving our audience by giving them really easy ways to think about their food. We're teaching them how to stay full with less calories. And we're also giving them the accountability and emotional support so that we have women, for example, I have a 58-year-old woman that just lost 55 pounds in the last 8 months. I have a woman that I'm working with that had struggled with her weight for over 10 years, and she's a professional woman in her 40s. And now she's dropped 25 pounds and is feeling the best that she's felt in years as a mom of 3. And something even more interesting and exciting is that I actually have a woman that's 80 years old that decided to start working with us because she's ready to get into the best shape of her life. She lost 30 pounds with us in the last 7 months. And this is all from lifestyle changes. It's not from dieting. It's about learning how to add tasty vegetables to your diet. It's about learning how to add more protein. It's about learning how to make it easy. We have a concept called easy eating, how to make everything simple. And it's also really knowing and trusting that you need accountability to make these changes. You can't just do this life overhaul by yourself because food brings about so many other emotions. It's not as easy as saying, I don't want to eat cookies and I should eat salad. There's a reason that we go to certain foods. And so we uncover and unpack that and clear it. And that's why it's a lifestyle transformation. So
it's so exciting. There's so many things I want to talk to you about, and this has been super rewarding. Where can people get a hold of you, find you, follow you, and more importantly, hire you to help them? I think that you've identified a lot of key areas and overcome virtually every excuse there is in the book. It's sound science with a sound psychology. And it seems like you've got the magic formula that I think a lot of women are looking for. Where do they find you? How do they get?
Thank you, Wade. I so appreciate that. Well, I have actually prepared something really special for your audience that I put together. I'm thinking they're going to love it. And this is my sweet spice cheat sheet. This is a free gift that once you grab it, will be connected. And this is my sweet spice cheat sheet. It includes a spice that's in your kitchen cabinet. It helps to lower blood sugar and curb sugar cravings. And so my cheat sheet, it includes 3 health benefits of using the spice, 5 no-cook ways to use it in your day, and an easy recipe using this spice. And so that's available, as I said, it's very special just for your audience at masalabody.com/awesome health. So masalabody.com/awesome health. Once you grab that cheat sheet, you will also get an email as a special bonus that has my 7 tested and perfected recipes to drop your first 7 pounds. And these are my really, really delicious metabolism boosting smoothies, easy spice filled recipes, and even some desserts. And so that is something you'll get right after you get the sweet spice cheat sheet. You'll see that. And then we'll be connected because I'll send you emails and I'll tell you more about some of my live events that I have coming up regularly, where I really teach in depth about the concepts that we talked about through multiple free 7-day retreats and more. So I'm excited to be connected with your audience, Wade.
Well, this has been awesome. You're a force of nature, and you've done something that I think a lot of women today need to understand: the steps, the processes, the procedures. What are the aspects of psychology that you need to overcome, the emotional side of it? I know we didn't get into all of that sort of stuff because I was so fascinated with some of the points that, frankly, I've heard over and over again as obstacles or unovercomable obstacles that women often present, and you've smashed through all of them, and you have a process for teaching other people. That's a profound thing, and that's, I think, totally awesome. And that's why I think people should reach out and find your information. Any closing words for our audience before we let you go? And hopefully we can get you back to kind of get into some of those emotional connection things. Of course, if they go to your website, they'll be able to find those things or connect with you directly and get it, in far more depth than we can cover here. Any final words?
Well, thanks for giving me this opportunity, Wade. And this has been just such a fabulous conversation. You're such a great conversationalist. So this has been truly enjoyable. And what I want to share is that, this is really like our life is here. We can create our own life. And it's about envisioning what is that life you want to live. And then knowing that you can get there, it's just figuring out the how. And if you tried it once and it didn't work, you tried it 2 times and it didn't work, well, that's what happens for everyone. And when you're persistent and you keep going, you keep looking for the right resources, you can reach that vision. And, and for me, weight was the first obstacle that I had to overcome so that I could even see that I had a vision. I was blocked because I couldn't think about anything until I lost the weight. And once that weight came off, there is so much more in life. There's so much more to enjoy without feeling like you are just being burdened. And so this life exists, and having that independence and not feeling guilt, that's all part of the journey, and we can all reach there. So whatever your vision is, know what it is, and then just find the how, because it can happen. You can absolutely do it.
Beautifully said. Very exciting. There you have it, folks. Nagina Abdullah from masalabody.com. Check out all of her sites and her beautiful offer that she has. It's all included here in the show notes at the Awesome Health Show from Bioptimizers. If you like this episode, please put the like button, share it with your friends or professional ladies who may be looking for answers and are at their wits' end. This is the place to come. I hope you enjoy the show. We'll see you on the very next episode. Take care.
At Bioptimizers, our mission is to fix digestion. And a cornerstone of digestion is gut flora. P3OM is our patented probiotic formula. In fact, we call it the Navy SEALs of probiotics. You see, strong proteolytic or protein digesting activity is paramount to having a healthy gut flora. And of course, P3OM provides that. The good news is, unlike weaker probiotics, P3OM survives the digestion process. What it does is it basically multiplies the good guys while protecting you against pathogens, or what some people call the bad guys. P3OM really helps to rebuild your digestion. And what that allows you to do is to maximize nutrient uptake, energy, and metabolism. To find out more of how P3OM can help you, go to www.bioptimizers.com.
Thank you for listening to the Bioptimizers Awesome Health Podcast. You can find more information at bioptimizers.com.